You may have delayed your destiny. This cannot be.
Boom! Big boom, baby! Hey guys, so I'm back with my final video and full build guide for the Righteous Fire minions. Now, this build has definitely gone through quite a bit of ups and downs, and I would say that my goal for this build was, of course, to get it to be clearing maps very, very efficiently, as well as being able to do some decent single target and hopefully taking it as far as possible to be able to do as high level content as possible. Now, where I got with it was, of course, same with before, very easily clearing tier 15, tier 16 maps with both the actual clear itself being pretty good and also killing the bosses in those maps pretty efficiently as well. Unfortunately, I was never able to get it to one-shot any of those bosses, but killing them has been no problem. I've been able to kill them in like 1 to 2 bursts of the explosions for my minions. Now, when it comes to pinnacle bosses, that's a little bit of a different story. I wasn't really able to try it on anything other than the Sekima boss and also the Zesht. And for Zesht, I wasn't able to get it to clear tier 4 Zesht in terms of even like the clearing the minions part before the map even starts. But we were able to do it at, I think, tier 2 was the highest we were able to get through the entire thing and be able to get to the end and start trying to kill Zesht. I didn't try tier 3 because I think that would have been just a waste of money given how hard it was even to keep up with tier 2 in the breach area, but that's completely fine. This build wasn't really made for like super fast clear, and to be honest, there's nowhere else where you really need that level of clear other than with Zesht. With the boss damage itself, it's okay. It's decent. As you see in the clip, I am killing the tier 2 Zesht right now, and it's not like doing amazing damage, but it definitely is enough to kill it. And I think that if you were to, do tier 3, tier 4, and try to even get there and be able to get there, I think this build would be okay with that content as well. It wouldn't be like, uber melting these bosses, but you could definitely do it, and you just have to go around and deal with a couple of mechanics here and there. But yeah, here is my build right now. So looking at the stats, I'm a level 91 Infernalist. I have 2.4k life, 7.5k energy shield, 961 mana, 647 spirit, and again, we are capped on all resistances except for chaos. For me, I just haven't really seen an issue with it. And I also added in mind over matter to deal with any like poison damage that's leaking over. So really, chaos resistance hasn't been an issue at all. But those are my stats, and as I said before in the last video, I could bring the survivability a little bit up, but I really don't think that it needs to be that much more survivable, because this build, you're not really struggling too much with surviving against enemies. Now, pulling up the skill gems, of course, the main bread and butter has to be the Skeletal Brutes, and we are using Feeding Frenzy, Last Gasp, Concentrated Effect, Minion Instability, and of course, Infernal Legion. I'm not going to put that on right now because that's just going to cause my minions to burn up and die and make a bunch of noise as per last video. But that's what I use for this setup. Now, last time I had Chaos Mastery here or Minion Mastery, and I took that off for Concentrated Effect because at the end of the day, even though increased HP does do more damage, like it makes your minions do more damage with the Infernal Legion and the explosions, what I found is that increasing the damage itself rather than the HP and the levels of the minion just gives you more damage from the burns and the explosions than the levels do. That is also why we don't run a Grand Spectrum on this build, because one, it's expensive, but also two, that level difference, the 3 levels, actually doesn't even beat out like a 15% damage gem that you would get from just a regular Sapphire. You would get more auto attack damage from your brutes, which actually is a good bit of the damage itself, but for the purposes of the Righteous Fire build, we want to be doing the majority of our damage from the burns and the explosions itself. So that's why we don't use it. Now you might be like, oh, well, why are you running Concentrated Effect on mapping? Like, wouldn't you want a higher AoE when you're mapping? Either run the Minion Mastery or even Magnified Effect? Well, to be honest, our brutes, the AoE that the burn inflicts is not really that much changed by magnified effect or concentrated effect. The explosion itself seems to be pretty, significant when you put one of those gems on there. But at the same time, if you think about it this way, we have so many brutes, and the brutes themselves are the AoE. So it doesn't matter too much what the actual AoE of the explosions or burns are. As long as we have brutes kind of running around everywhere, this entire area is an AoE. So just adding magnified effect or taking off concentrated effect really doesn't make that much of a difference. Also, when it comes to rare, you only really need about 2 to 3 brutes to explode on them anyways. So in most situations, even with concentrated effect, that situation is going to be fulfilled and you're going to be able to kill the rares in one shot. So that's our setup for our brutes, and we currently have 15 brutes with our 647 spirit. We have quite a bit of spirit on this build. Definitely the most spirit I've seen on most builds, but there's definitely more I can do to increase the spirit, of course. Now, that's what I have for the brutes. For my Infernal Hound, we have Beat Shield, Elemental Army, Fire Exposure, Strip Away, and Culling Strike. I think that's the same as last time. This is really just here to apply the Fire Exposure and also cull enemies. Other than that, we have Flammability. I think last time we might have had it on a Blasphemy setup. I ended up taking it off because I just didn't really find clear to be really much of an issue, and Flammability at the end of the day didn't really add that much to my clear anyways. It wasn't letting me clear the tier 4 breach the beginning part, so it really didn't do much other than make me have to use one less brute. So we took off Flammability and for our Blasphemy setup, and we just have it sit here sitting by itself with Heightened Curse, Persistence, and Inspiration. And then also we have our Ball Lightning Warp setup just to get shocks in. Ball Lightning has Arcane Tempo. Lightning Warp has Overcharge and Stormfire. We do this because minions are always burning the enemies, so the enemies will always have Ignite on them. And as a result, shocks will never expire. And then also we are running Grim Feast, and we have Leap Slam here for mobility with Martial Tempo. We still have our Skeletal Warrior setup as before I've explained, but for this, because it is full build guide, I will explain again. Right now, for our setup, we have a Skeletal Warrior setup with just setting 2 here, and we also have Skeletal Warriors from our Scepter itself, and that gives us a total of 4 Skeletal Warriors. Now, this setup is really, really nice because you want to be using Pain Offering to increase the damage that your brutes do. The issue with only using 2 Skeletal Warriors is that when your brutes die, well, first off, right, unless your brutes aren't on the screen, in this situation, if you're using Pain Offering, unfortunately, you can't just be oh, only impale the skeletons, right? You're going to be impaling a brute here and there, and you don't really want to do that. You want to only be impaling the skeletons. So that's why we have a 2 skeleton setup, 4 skeletons, I guess, but 2 skeleton skills, because when our brutes have burned up and exploded, right, they're going to die in just a second. As they revive, you can use Pain Offering to impale the skeletons that are alive because they aren't going to be blowing up like the brutes are. And then what will happen is there will be 2 skeletons left on the screen after that. So that's why you have 4, right? So you're going to impale your skeletons right here, right? Sorry, let me summon them again. So you're going to be impaling your skeletons here, and you'll have 2 skeletons left, right? This way, next time they die, you still have these 2 skeletons to go and impale. If you didn't have that, all the previous 2 skeletons that you impaled would be reviving at the same time as those brutes, and you wouldn't be able to impale the skeletons while they're reviving. You wouldn't be able to choose and select the skeletons anymore. That's why we have this 2 skeleton skill kind of setup. That way we always have skeletons available for us to do Pain Offering on, to just keep 100% uptime on Pain Offering without having to worry that we're going to impale the brutes. Now, let's talk about Pain Offering gems, and let's take off the Infernal Legion again because they're making a lot of noise. But Pain Offering, we have Ablation, Dance Macabre, Minion Mastery, and we have Magnified Effect on it. Minion Mastery, giving more levels, more effectiveness. Same with these two to increase how strong it is. And then Magnified Effect just to increase the AoE of it, because a lot of times we're going to be running around while using this. So we want that AoE to be as big as possible. And yeah, that is the gem setups that we have right now. Now for our tree and our jewels, that is kind of somewhere that we improved a lot on, since last video. Of course, we didn't really change too much about the tree. I did kind of make things a little bit more efficient here and there. Took off some of these area nodes for the same reason why I talked about concentrated effect not really being that big of an issue with this build. And we just move things around to make it, have more better stuff in general. Of course, we kept our Ascendancy stuff the same. We have the Beta Hand for the Energy Shield, and then we have this one for the Spirit. And then we have a Hellhound, of course, for the exposure effect of the dog, as well as just to be able to soak a little bit more damage, right? So, of course, the main goal of this tree is to grab as many minion increased damage nodes as well as minion life nodes, and also the most important thing is these ones, minion revives faster. So this one right here, Living Death, and we also have one right here, Restless Dead. Without these, you cannot make this build work. So that's what you do there. And then we have our jewels, right? So our jewels right now, we are running a lot of unique jewels. We're running 3 Grand Spectrums. That way we can get as much spirit as possible, right? So 6 total spirit from this. You can only run 3 maximum. 1, 2, I think our third one's over here. Yep. These are pretty cheap. They're like 100 exalts each. And then we also have this one, well, the Megalomaniac, right? Same as last time, 2-pronged attack, Immortal Thirst. If you can get more, if you can even get like this one right here, Sturdy Ally on it, that would be the best. But for pricing, we just went with 2-pronged attack. This was fairly cheap as well, about 100 exalts. And this is the most expensive item that we have for our entire setup. You don't have to have this, but it definitely will increase the amount of damage that you do, because the number of brutes that you have increases your damage directly with the explosions. So we bought this against the Darkness Jewel with 12 spirit, and this costed us 18 divines. I think on average it's about 20 divine, so I got a little bit of a discount on it. But that's the reason why you see us putting stuff here in notables all over the place, because notables give us 12 spirit. I think in total this gives us like 90 something spirit or something like that. So it's a lot of spirit. That's why we have all these notables that we don't really care about, like this one, recoup damage, taking its life. We don't care about this. Same with the critical damage. We can't even crit on our explosions. Same with this. We don't really care about the chaos resistance or the physical, like the chaos damage it does on auto attacks. And we also grabbed this. This is kind of helpful, but still at the end of the day, I wasn't planning on getting it if we didn't have this. But this is a perfect slot for against Darkness Jewel, because it gives you a ton of spirit. And that's how we have so many brutes. But yeah, the other jewels are, of course, these increased damage jewels, and minions attack and cast speed increase as well, because our minions do auto attack damage, and it's not bad. If you look at the POB that I have over here in terms of the calculations from the minion stability versus our auto attacks, minion stability does about 200k damage per explosion right now, and the basic attack does half of that. So it's definitely a good amount of damage. To be honest, if we're just talking about auto attack and DPS, our auto attacks probably do more damage, but that's only for bosses. For when we're clearing and AoEing, minion instability and Infernal Legion are going to be the main ones doing the work. Now, yeah, that is going to be the tree. Oh, one more thing before we go off of it. I did add, as I mentioned earlier, Mind Over Matter. That way we don't have to worry about chaos damage and poison damage really being an issue. So there it is. For our gear, I don't think our setup has really changed too much. We have, of course, Trench Timber. This is going to be the best in slot for one of your one-handers. Gives you +3 levels all minions, which health Like HP wise, again, doesn't increase all that much, but it's still an increase to our damage. You can get this to +4 corrupt, and that's pretty expensive. But eventually, if I were to keep pushing this forward, I'd probably put 2 Uskapas in here. That way we have more brutes. Then for our helmet, we have the same one as before, our nicely rolled one. You don't have to have something this nice. We have our scepter, which we didn't change either. You want for the scepter, of course, for sure, as high spirit as possible. You want allies in your presence to deal increased damage. This is a fairly low rolled one. I think you go up to 100% or something like that, something around there. You also want the +4 levels of minions, and you want increased to maximum life. I would say that in general, you could give up the increased maximum life for allies in your presence deal increased damage, because like I said, the minion health doesn't actually improve the damage all that much. So that's something that I would improve on this scepter, but it also requires you to kind of play around your minions a lot more closely. Our chest, again, just for survivability and spirit. Rings for resistances. Same with this one. It'll give you more spirit as well. That's why I kind of liked having a Venter's Gamble in this slot. And then we have ingenuity, which you don't need. You can just use anything that gives you survivability. I just kind of used it because I have one and I wanted to use it. So you could just kind of do a normal setup with regular rings and regular belts. For our gloves, we have as much life and energy shield as possible, as well as some resistances. And our boots are going to be some resistances, as much life, energy shield, and movement speed as possible. The setup for this really isn't that complicated. Now, the reason why we don't really have a offhand swap kind of setup is because it can get a little bit wonky with like the revives when you're using last gasp when you're swapping between weapon setups. But also the reason why I do that, and the main reason, is because sometimes you might accidentally swap and use like a curse or something like that, and then your minions end up reviving while you're on that secondary setup, and it snapshots to your like second weapon set stats. So you don't really want that. You can kind of, if you wanted to, get 2 sets of these, right, and get pretty much the exact same weapon setup, and that could avoid the weapon snapshotting issue, but it's, to me, not really worth it. But guys, that about wraps up this video. This is by no means a super efficient minion build, but it is a very, very fun one, and it could, bring some laughs and potentially fry your graphics card. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know down in the comment section below what you think of the build, and also if you have any improvements or suggestions for it to make it better. And as always, if you want to support the channel, the best way to do it is by hitting the subscribe button. And I also stream on twitch.tv/MisoXShiru every single night starting at 10 p.m. PST. I'm also doing my first foray into solo Selfhound hardcore as a warrior right now, so come and join and hang out. But if I can't see you there, hopefully I see y'all on the next video. All right, guys, enjoy this map. Unless you're playing some sort of garbage build, it's I don't know what to do. I only know how to make garbage builds good or usable. I don't know how to make good builds better. Hoping they actually bring the Righteous Fire from PoE 1 to this. Oh, 100%. I mean, I think they will, but like, I doubt they'll make it like as good as it was in PoE 1. Like, that's kind of the trend, right? The skills that they brought from PoE 1 are all just like worse than their PoE 1 counterparts. Like, I think, because like originally, right? I think their idea for Righteous Fire was to make it like a spellcaster, like purely a spellcaster ability, where it would boost the ability of your spells, right, and the damage that your spells do. But then it eventually became some sort of like, big damage over time thing. And originally I think their idea wasn't that way, but they just ended up going that direction because everybody wanted to play it that direction. I think like PoE 2 is kind of like, trying to go back on like a lot of their original ideas. What are you talking about, meta? Oh, stop being weird, man. And the answer is it has copyrighted music, so sadly. Because we stream on the YouTubes.
You got it set to M for mini.
YouTube ruins everything.
W for Wumbo.
I don't think RF was big damage Q1. It was more like super comfy, easy to play. It wasn't big damage like, you know, end game bossing type of damage, right? But the thing is, in general, PoE 2 has, if you look at like a lot of the stuff that's like super comfy to play, they have made it not super comfy to play, right? Like the best example is Flicker Strike. Flicker Strike is, I put Flicker Strike, Righteous Fire, and Cyclone in kind of the same bucket as super comfy builds to play, right? And if you saw what they did with Flicker Strike, they took a super comfy build and made it kind of not that comfy anymore and not as good. So in those types of skills, I think all of them, when they come over to PoE 2, are just gonna be like, sadly, not as good. I hope they make it good. I hope they don't do that, but sadly for me, my opinion is that they probably will do the Flicker Strike treatment with Righteous Fire and Cyclone. Sad with the power charge and Jackie was generate them, exactly, right? And that's probably like what they're gonna do with skills like Cyclone, skills like Righteous Fire. All these like super comfy, like, you know, hold down one button and just go type of builds, I think they're gonna go on and kind of like maneuver them a bit. Maybe 4 Righteous Fire needs endurance charges. I know, dude. Like that's just the unfortunate part, because I love those types of builds, right? Those types of the builds are my favorite. Righteous Fire, Cyclone, fucking Flicker Strike. Those were like the only builds I ever played in Path of Exile 1. But I really, judging, again, maybe they'll surprise me, and I hope that's the case, right? But I just look at, like I said, I put Righteous Fire in the same category as Flicker Strike, and if we look at what they did to Flicker Strike, we can kind of see their direction and what, you know, where they're gonna go with like other skills like that. Anyways, I just want to say goodnight before I went to bed. Streaming during demon hours, really? All right, sounds good, Meta. Thanks for stopping by and saying hi. Sleep well. And sir, you could have been here on the stream for like 3 hours at this point. What do you mean streaming at demon hours? You just chose not to come earlier. It's all your choice. I was busy, sure. I haven't seen you in like at least a week. At least a week or two on this stream. I've seen you in Emmys though. Don't give me that. Don't give me that, sir. I know what's going on. I see you.